This afternoon, we will be learning about Vietnam's journey in financial inclusion and the role of Vietnam Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development, or AgriBank, in concretizing the country's visions and goals. Before we begin, please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Dan Lumain, and I am the Microfinance and Financial Inclusion Group Head for Rizal Microbank Inc., a thrift bank of RCBC. It's my absolute pleasure to be your moderator for today's session. At this point, please join me in welcoming our speaker for this afternoon, Ms. Pham Thi Vuong Giang, Deputy Director of Financial Institutions Department at the Vietnam Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And for the first, I would like to introduce to you the information about our AgriBank. As you may know, that AgriBank has been the only 100 state-owned banks in Vietnam, and we are the state-owned banks in Vietnam in terms of providing products and services in agricultural and rural areas. Up to now, we are one of the largest bank in Vietnam in terms of total assets. And also, we have the largest operational network in Vietnam with more than 2,200 branches and transaction offices nationwide. We have the operating presence in every city, every provinces, especially in very far and remote areas and island areas also. We have one branch in Cambodia, and now we have maintained corresponding banking relationship with more than 600 banks in 100 countries around the world. And our labor force, we have reached for more than 39,000 staff, very professional and loyal employees, and have a good command of the local market. We are now provide many development in the online distribution channel system like SMS banking, e-mobile banking, internet banking, digital bank, etc. And at the end of this June, our total assets has reached for more than 80 billion US dollar, and it increased by 1.50% compared to the end of 2022. Our capital mobilized from the economy has reached for more than 74 billion US dollar, and the outstanding loans to the economies reached for more than 62 billion US dollar, and of which more than 65% to 70% of the outstanding loans are loans to the agricultural and rural areas of Vietnam. Our income from services reached for more than 200 million US dollar, and it increased by 4.8% compared to the same period last year, despite the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. So our profit before tax reached for more than 570 million US dollar. And so now I start with my presentation. My presentation will consist of three parts. The first one is the overview of financial inclusion in Vietnam, and then we will share with you the role and contribution of AgriBank to the development of financial inclusion in agricultural and rural areas. And the last one is our direction in the coming time for the development of financial inclusion in agricultural and rural areas. You know that financial inclusion is an important content that has been confirmed on a global scale when the United Nations has identified it as a solution to achieve 7 out of 17 sustainable development targets by the year of 2030. The G20 has considered financial inclusion as one of the main pillars of its development orientation since the year of 2009. ASEAN countries have also identified financial inclusion as one of the 3 pillars for the ASEAN Vision to 2025 and have established a committee working group on financial inclusion since 2016 with the goal of cooperating to promote financial inclusion in member countries and in the region. Currently, more than 60 countries around the world have developed and implemented the national financial inclusion strategy. So in Vietnam, in early of 2020, the Prime Minister has signed the National Financial Inclusion Strategy to 2025, and with the orientation to 2030, with the overall target that all people and businesses can safely and conveniently access and use financial products and services that are suitable for their needs at very reasonable cost. Supply reasonable and sustainably from licensed credit institutions. The National Financial Inclusion Strategy pays special attention to those who have little or no access to financial products and services in rural and agricultural areas, in remote and isolated areas, the poor, the low-income people, the women and other vulnerable groups, for small and medium enterprises, and for micro enterprises, cooperatives, etc. In addition to the National Financial Inclusion Strategy, the Prime Minister of Vietnam has approved a number of other strategies that are complementary in nature and promote financial inclusion, like the cash payment initiative for the period of 2021-2025, and also the development strategy for Vietnam banking sector till 2025 and outlook to 2030, and the project on restructuring the system of credit institutions associated with bad debt settlement in the period of 2021-2025. These strategies have also positive impact on improving access to banking services, especially for people in rural, remote, and isolated areas. In the slide, you can see that the role of agricultural and rural areas to the building of development in Vietnam. Agricultural and rural areas have always special significance to the national construction and development. The policy of agricultural and rural development, constantly improving the lives of farmers, has been mentioned in many resolutions and documents of the party and the state of Vietnam. On that basis, the State Bank of Vietnam also has issued many credit policies for agricultural and rural development, together with the target, the orientations and solutions identified in the National Financial Inclusion Strategy to 2025, with orientation to 2030. And the State Bank of Vietnam, the governor of the State Bank of Vietnam also has issued the action plan of the banking sector to implement the National Financial Inclusion Strategy. And this is a very important basis for the implementation of financial inclusion in Vietnam, and contributing to the hunger and poverty reduction, create jobs and living standard for people, especially they live in the rural and agricultural areas. As you know that Agribank has been established since 1988, and through the more than 35 years of establishment and development, we have a very big mission and important role in providing funds and financial services for agriculture, rural areas, and farmers. After 35 years of construction and development, we have become one of the leading commercial banks in Vietnam, with the financial figures I have mentioned to you earlier. And up to now, Agribank has been assigned Ba2 rating by Moody's, and this is all of the ratings are equivalent to the country ratings. And we always promote the pioneering and key role of 100% state-owned banks in effectively implementing monetary and credit policies in agricultural and rural development, contributing to promote economic growth and ensure social security, actively contribute to poverty reduction, building new rural areas, promoting the structuring of agricultural sector, creating motivation for agriculture to play its roles as the support to the economy over the years. In the 6 months of this year, the agricultural sector continued to maintain stable growth, maintaining the supporting role of the country. The value of the entire agricultural sector increased by 3.14%. Export turnover reached 17.5 billion US dollar. The above result was contributed by Agribank's credit funds and financial services, which is an important resource to promote the new rural construction across the country, contributing to actively participate in the process of socio-economic development and affirming Agribank's leading position in the development of for the mission for the agricultural rural areas and farmers. With the key role in providing funds and financial services to agricultural and rural areas, Agribank has many strengths in implementing a financial inclusion strategy, being the leading commercial bank in Vietnam in all aspects, with a network of more than 2,200 branches and transaction office nationwide, and nearly 39,000 experienced and enthusiastic staff have sufficient resources, experience, and capacity to implement comprehensive finance in rural areas. We have a large customer base in all provinces and cities, especially in rural, remote, and isolated areas. Following the direction of the government and the State Bank of Vietnam, Agribank has been implementing many policies and solutions to promote financial inclusion and increase access to financial services for the people towards sustainable development of agricultural and rural areas in Vietnam. And the main roles and contributions that we have. The first one, we as a commercial bank associated with the mission of serving agricultural, rural areas and farmers from the very beginning of our establishment. Agribank's outstanding loans for agricultural and rural areas always have been maintained in line with the targets. That is from 65% to 70% of the total outstanding loans to the economy, making an important contribution to the continuous development of agricultural and rural sectors, creating a new position for the support role of the economy, ensuring the national food security. As of end of this June, we have more than 2.8 million farmers and agricultural customers, with the total outstanding loans of over 900 trillion Vietnamese dong. Second, closely following the direction of the party and the government on the policy of the whole country join forces to build new countryside with the advantage of having a wide network throughout the country. Agribank has conducted a survey of the social-economic situation in the provinces, especially in the districts. We select to pilot the new rural model to satisfy the needs of the community, lending for the capital for the economic development in the areas. Mainly focusing on the following areas. We lend capital for economic development in the area, mainly for production costs of agriculture, forestry, fishery, sand production, and to develop agricultural and rural industry. By the end of this June, we have provided loans in nearly 9,000 districts, with outstanding loan for more than 4.6 billion Vietnamese dong, with more than 2.2 million customers. Our funds has supported and created conditions for localities to implement the projects to build the road, the school, and the hospital. for the farmers and for the people living in the rural and agricultural areas. And we step by step improve our labor productivity and income, contribute to the stabilize the life of the farmers, and form very specialized farming areas for agricultural products and commodities. Like we have food areas in some provinces in Vietnam, and the other we have rice export areas in the Red River Delta, the Mekong River Delta, and we have plant rubber, coffee trees in the Central Highlands, etc. Our bank also has been a faithful and reliable companion of farmers, actively implementing the sustainable poverty reduction and hunger alleviation solutions. Up to now, we have provided loans to support poor districts under the government resolution number 38 on supporting sustainable poverty reduction for 61 poor districts, nearly 250,000 borrowers, and the outstanding loans of more than 425 billion Vietnamese đồng, with more than 3,000 customers, contribute to creating conditions for people to increase their incomes and successfully reduce the poverty. We are, you know that we are the only commercial banks in Vietnam that we have branches and transaction offices in 9 out of 13 island districts. Our bank has actively implemented lending policies according to Decree number 67 in almost 28 coastal localities, with the outstanding loans for more than for nearly 6,000 billion Vietnamese đồng, and we're helping the fishermen building and upgrade their ships of more than 600 ships, accounting for 52.8% of the total number of newly built ships. And also upgrade according to the lending program of the entire banking sector, contributing to the economic development associated with the national defense and security, protecting the world and the island of the country. Our bank also actively lends to reduce losses in agriculture according to the decision 63, 65, 68 of the Prime Minister of Vietnam, and we effectively implemented loans for coffee replanting with outstanding loans of more than 142 billion Vietnamese đồng, and the outstanding loans for these three decisions as of end of this June has reached for more than 300 billion Vietnamese đồng. In implementing the government's policy on improving access of banking services that are suitable to the needs of good quality, especially for the population in rural and remote areas. Since the end of 2017, our bank has pioneered the deployment of automobile transaction units with very specialized cards to expand to provide loans and provide banking services to production households and individuals living in the very far remote and rural areas, and contributing to the development of the commodity production for the hunger and poverty reduction also. And improvement of the income and living standards of the population. As of the end of this June, activities, we have 68 automobile transaction units with a specialized cars were carried out in 486 districts. We perform more than 27,000 trading sessions with nearly 2.5 million tons of customers transacting in disbursement, in debt collection, in mobilization, savings, payment, money transfer, or account opening, etc. closely following the direction of the government and the state bank, and at the same time, well aware of the responsibility of the banks operating in the fields of agriculture and rural areas. Our bank has made efforts to deploy a variety of solutions to help limit the situation of black credit. We maximize the simplification of lending process for small consumer loans, quick disbursement time, and the fastest response to the unexpected needs of funds for people in the agricultural and rural and in disadvantaged areas. The consumer credit program with an estimated scale of more than 5,000 billion Vietnamese dong has so far achieved 10 times the loan value, meeting all the urgent needs from the people and improving the lives of the household and the individuals. As of the end of this June, the total outstanding consumer loans has reached for more than 285,000 Vietnamese dong with nearly 1,000 customers. Besides of that, we have worked closely with the local authorities, the social political organizations such as the Farmers Union, the Women's Union, through group lending to transfer funds and promptly respond to the people's need. We remove difficulties and solve problems of customer in accessing bank capital right from the time of their lending application. This is a very important solution to Agribank, contributing to promoting banking agency activities and promoting financial inclusion. Up to now, we have deployed for more than 63,000 loan groups with more than 1.2 million members. Outstanding loans reach for more than 195 trillion Vietnamese dong. We also increase access to bank capital of individuals and households, as well as modern payment services with very simple and convenient products, especially people living in the rural and agricultural area, in remote and isolated areas as well. For the poor, the low-income people, women, and the other disadvantaged groups, we has actively implemented the project to promote the development of cash services in agricultural and rural areas of Vietnam. And this project has been recognized and appreciated by the State Bank of Vietnam and the Vietnam Banks Association for our creativity for implementing the methods of granting credit via cards, while ensuring control over the loans yield process, as well as helping customers access loans with simple and easy convenience, easy procedures. And it is an innovative model for replication in the near future. Since the implementation of this project, we have issued nearly 600,000 cards, installed new 5,000 point of sales, and granted overdraft limit with a total outstanding balance of nearly 300 billion Vietnamese dong to customers. Despite having to compete with capital mobilization according to the market, agricultural and farmer rural areas are always prioritized by Agribank to lend at lower interest rate, often from 1 to 2% per year. Every year, we have spent thousands of Vietnamese dong with our own financial resources to support low-interest loans for priority customers in agricultural and rural areas. And also, we have implemented many credit packages with preferential interest rates for SME enterprises and agricultural production household. At the same time, we are very actively implement social security activities through funding the construction of hundreds of schools, hospitals, medical stations, thousands of gratitude houses for the policy beneficiary, for the poor household across the country, from the financial resource of the bank and the contribution of the employees throughout the system. And by the end of this June, we have contributed for more than 107 50 billion Vietnamese dong contributed and supported to for social security work. Agribank has been a pioneer bank in implementing the policy of promoting non-cash payment by the government and the State Bank of Vietnam. We pay special attention to the agricultural and rural market. Since the year 2003 up to now, we have been the only bank that have equipped ATMs and CDMs to all of the provinces in the country, from the mountainous and the border areas to the remote and isolated areas, and also the island areas of Vietnam. The number of ATMs and CDMs in the districts is nearly 2,000 out of the total of 3,500 ATM nationwide. And with an effort to modernize the payment system in agricultural and rural areas, Agribank has been contributing to gradually changing customers' cash usage habits in this area. Recognizing the popularization and education of financial knowledge to the community is an important content of the National Financial Inclusion Strategy. Agribank has coordinated with the State Bank of Vietnam to popularize and educate knowledge of public finance, especially for high school students, through the participation in the reality TV programs, TV game shows on finance, banking for the public jointly implemented by the State Bank of Vietnam and the Vietnam Television, contributing to promoting public financial education for community, changing the perception and behavior of financial service users, increasing the accessibility to financial services for all people. Agribank also take the leads in quickly updating modern payment trends and technologies in line with the trend of digital transformation in the economy, bringing banking services closer to the people. Agribank has implemented a breakthrough modern digital banking model. This is called Agribank Digital, helping customers access banking services in fully automated way, 25/7 quickly, safely, and securely. So that's why we have many prestige awards by reputable international organizations and as well as our correspondent banks around the world, as you can see in the slide. So according to the development strategy to 2025 and outlook to 2030, we define the following key objectives in the near future. We have to maintain our position as a commercial bank that plays a key role in Vietnam and will perform the key tasks and roles in credit supply and banking services and utilities in the fields of agricultural and rural areas. We further improve the competitiveness, financial capacity, and operational efficiency. We increase the transparency and comply with the international standards and practices in governance in line with the regulation of the State Bank of Vietnam. We also have been dynamic and more creative to adapt to the fourth industrial revolution, meet the increasing demand for financial and banking services of customers, move towards financial inclusion by 2030, and ensure that customers have full and convenient access to financial services. We have made the positive contribution to sustainable development. We also will diversify products and services, focusing on developing modern products and services, applying digital technology in order to increase the proportion of income from non-credit service activities, and actively and effectively participating in the implementation of services, comprehensive financial policy according to the roadmap of State Bank of Vietnam. Besides of that, on the basis of Agribank's action plan to implement the National Financial Inclusion Strategy to 2025 with the orientation to 2030, approved by the Board of Directors of Agribank, in the coming time, Agribank is determined to work with the government on levels, sectors, people, and businesses to effectively implement the solution to realize the National Financial Inclusion Strategy in the context that Vietnam has a very large percentage of people living in the remote areas who do not have bank accounts and have no condition to access to banking products and services. And the key solution, we will continue to focus on resources to prioritize the supply of capital and financial services for the development of agriculture, rural areas, and farmers. Continue to maintain the proportion of outstanding loans of agriculture and rural areas from 65 to 70% of the total outstanding loans. Second, we will perfect the legal framework to create a favorable environment for the realization of financial inclusion goals, research to identify and effectively manage risks related to financial inclusion. Thirdly, we will develop a variety of supply organization and distribution channels in order to support all people and businesses to access and use basic financial products and services conveniently and at a very reasonable cost to enhance the capacity and orient the operation in line with Agribank's financial inclusion targets. We will develop a banking agent model in order to expand the scope of banking service provision closer to people in areas that where they have no or few banking services. And we also use the modern distribution channels based on the digital technology application to expand the scope of providing financial products and services at low cost, especially via mobile phones, supporting microfinance organization programs and projects to operate safely and effectively, expand the access to financial services for the poor, the low-income people, women, and the micro enterprises. We shall develop a variety of basic financial products and services towards the customer of financial inclusion target. We will also promote non-cash payments in the economy, creating favorable conditions for the customer of financial inclusion to access and use non-cash payment services. We promote the development of financial products and services serving agricultural and rural production and business for the SME, for the cooperatives and business household. We further improve and increase the efficiency of the financial infrastructure, facilitate the reduction of transaction fees, and meet the requirements of promoting financial inclusion. Participate in building a national database on population and financial inclusion according to the set of statistical indicators announced by the State Bank of Vietnam. And the last one, that we shall develop and implement overall measures to enhance knowledge and skills of financial management, improve understanding of financial products and services of people and businesses, thereby increase the ability to use, assess the benefits and risks of financial products and services provided by the licensed credit institutions so that people and businesses can choose products and services suitable to their needs. We will participate in the development of a legal framework to protect financial consumers and strengthen communication on financial inclusion strategies. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Yang, for that wonderful, comprehensive, and substantial discussion. We take note of a lot of the achievements that Agribank has done, particularly having more than 2,000 branches, several representative offices and subsidiaries, 3,500 ATMs, and so many digital products to offer to your consumers, which allowed you to basically have a portfolio of more than $39 billion solely on the agricultural sector. But I want to take it back from the very beginning and basically just wanted to ask you, were there any challenges that Agribank faced when you were starting on this journey towards financial inclusion? Because I believe that many of the institutions represented here today would also want to contribute to their country's financial inclusion strategy, but may probably be incurring certain challenges and obstacles.
I think the most challenge for implementing the financial inclusion strategy from the national, that is we have to, that most of our customers are farmers and individual, most of them living in the rural and agricultural areas. So, that how we can persuade them to use, to open bank accounts or to use any financial products and services. I think the most challenge is to persuade our customer to use on not only the basic products and services, but also the modern ones in the context of the 4.0 technology revolution you can see right now. Yeah. We do not see any challenges in assess the farmer and the customer in rural areas, because that we have a very large, the largest operational network in Vietnam, and we also have every branches and transaction offices in almost every island of Vietnam, and very far, very remote, remote and mountain area, that we could have access to the very low people and also to the people living in the minority areas. So with the strengths of Agribank, beside of the branch network, also we have the very professional and loyal employees with very good command of the local market. Yeah, we see that I think the most challenge is to only to persuade the farmers, to use all the, especially for the modern banking products and services.
All right. Thank you very much for that answer. We basically recognize that the large channels or large network that you have is such a big help towards accessing these communities, particularly in the rural areas. But I do want to zero in on one thing you mentioned, particularly on persuading these consumers to utilize the products you are offering. And that's also an experience we do share here in the Philippines, wherein we try to offer as much products as we can to the market, but there's this resistance. And that resistance is really coming from their behavior, that they feel that they will not be able to comply with the requirements of formal financial institutions. Do you feel that you also share that kind of issues or challenges, particularly in terms of agricultural lending?
Yeah, we also want to add some more challenges regarding, that most of the loans are out for agricultural sector, and we have many unexpected occurrence belong to the weather or the climate change. Yeah, so all of the when we provide loans or provide loans to the farmers, we find the challenge from all the natural disaster. And also one more thing is that we have to, that Agribank has been implemented the two roles besides of commercial banks. We have to implement all the missions that rented by the government and the state of Vietnam, and also the State Bank of Vietnam. We are the only bank that play the key role in the mission for the rural areas, farmers, and also for the agricultural areas. So sometimes we have to, that to balance between the benefits from commercial banks, and also the benefits the benefit that we have to share with the customers in agricultural and rural areas.
Speaking of being a state-owned bank, one question that was raised here in our Q&A box is whether or not there are certain government programs that the Vietnamese government has instituted to bridge not only agricultural players, but also micro, small, medium enterprises to financial service providers like you, like Agribank. No? Are there specific government programs that would basically assist state-owned banks and even private institutions in terms of addressing financial inclusion in your country?
Actually, Agribank now we have 7 credit policy and also 2 national target policy for lending to the agricultural and rural areas, and all of these credit policies are granted very low interest and preferential interest rate to the customer. For example, we have in the seven credit policies, we have the lending to the agricultural and rural areas. And by the end of this June, the outstanding loans has reached for more than 925,000 Vietnamese dong. Yeah, and we also have credit policy for the shipman, yeah, to build the fisherman to build the ship, as I mentioned in my presentation. That is under the decree number 67, and the outstanding loans there by this end of this June is reached for more than 786 billion Vietnamese dong. We also have lending policy under decree number 63, 65, and 68, as I have mentioned earlier. This is to support the losses in agriculture, and we have the outstanding loans this first half of the year for 300 billion Vietnamese dong. Besides of that, we will also have the lending policy to support the very poor districts, and also for the coffee replanting, and the two national target credit policy we have for the building the new rural, and also to reduce poverty reduction and hunger alleviation. Yeah, all of these kind of these credit policies done under the direction of the government. This is the credit policy from the government, and Agribank has the bank that very effectively implement on the policies for the development of agricultural and rural areas. And almost these loans are very provided with lower interest rate for normal loans, yeah, and some are preferential interest rate.
Just to summarize, you have around 7 credit policies within Agribank, and 2 national target policies specifically catering to the government's direction in terms of financial inclusion. But with all of those lending policies instituted or established, you did mention earlier that despite that number, Agribank was able to really simplify your lending operations. But to some commercial bankers, to some formal bankers here in the call today, some may be wondering, how do those simplified lending procedures still allow Agribank to maintain such a healthy portfolio? In short, how do you specifically assess a particular character of a borrower, or are there any specific strategies that Agribank is doing to ensure that bad debts don't increase despite growing the number of borrowers for Agribank?
Actually, regarding to the simplifying the lending application, that we reduce the time of reviewing the application, and so we reduce the time of course every steps in the lending procedure has been conducted as regulated by the State Bank of Vietnam, and also as regulation of Agribank as well. We normally reduce the time of reviewing the application of lending application for the customers, and of course the reviewing and assessing the bad debts of the loans are also conducted by the regulation of the bank as well.
Just circling back to the earlier question on government support, you did mention as well, Ms. Giang, that the customers under these credit policies do receive preferential interest rates. One of our participants is wondering whether or not Agribank is receiving any interest subsidies from the government in order to continuously promote that kind of policy towards the agricultural sector.
Actually, regarding to the 7 credit policies, all of these loans we have to rent at very lower interest rate, and we do not have any subsidy from the government. Yeah, because that besides of a commercial bank, we have to do as you can say, on a policy bank, yeah, for the mission of the country development, especially in rural and agricultural areas.
And just a follow up to that question, one of our attendees also asked whether or not Agribank has been able to access a database of farmers that allows you to assess their previous credit history or their previous experience in terms of borrowing? Is there a specific database that Agribank looks into in order to determine whether this particular farmer is eligible for a loan from your bank?
Regarding to the history of the customer, especially for the farmers with their previous loan, we have the system from the State Bank of Vietnam. Yeah, they have a profile of the history of the customers, and also you know that I have mentioned earlier that we have lend by a lending group through the farmers union or women's union, and we can collect information about the farmers through those unions in the villages or districts that the farmers they live there.
Just to continue, Ms. Giang, no? Earlier on, you did explain a lot of digital products that Agribank is currently offering to your consumers. Just wondering, from your standpoint, how did you choose the appropriate digital product for your market? Just to contextualize, in the Philippines, for example, those in the rural areas tend to be open, but not to the fullest extent in accessing these digital products. So I'm just wondering whether you also have that kind of experience. Was it easy for you to convince these consumers to start using digital products for their financial services, or are there any obstacles that you had to overcome to maximize the value of digitalization?
Thank you for sharing the experience in Philippines. You know that besides of providing basic products and services, Agribank now has focused more on digital products and services. And a recent highlight of Agribank Card Center is the digital banking project in the fields of cards. We call the Agribank Digital. And the Agribank Digital provides a full range of products and services of the bank, and helping customer to having 24 hours per day and 7 days per week access like customer identification and also authentication using eKYC biometrics like their face fingerprint, and they can open an online account, online card issuance, and they can register for e-mobile banking service, and they can sign up for a loan. For people who do not have bank accounts, they can use their identity card or citizen ID and perform simple operations to quickly open an account at Agribank Digital Bank. And once having an account with Agribank, with the implementation of fingerprint or face biometrics, the customer can perform financial transactions like withdrawal or deposit without using cards or identification paper. All the transactions are automated with fast processing speed, high accuracy, and customer can perform at any time instead of going to the bank and wait in line for the transaction counters like before. So now we also focus on authentication technologies along with the OTP or the PIN will be added layers of protection, creating a solid security wall to ensure the safety of customers in each transaction. And this kind of products contribute to the promoting non-cash payment and also eliminating the black credit status, as well as save the operating costs and human resources, and towards the goals of digitizing banking services.
I think we all share the same thoughts with you in terms of how valuable digital products are, not only in making our operations more efficient, but at the same time, ensuring that our customers are able to get financial services in the easiest way possible. Ms. Giang, there's a question here in our Q&A box, particularly on embedding the gender component, which I believe is part of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. One of our participants is asking, what is the appetite of Agribank in embedding gender component in providing financial access for women-owned or women-led enterprises?
the gender now is very important issues for many international organizations like ADB or AFD or World Bank. Yeah, they spend much special attention to the woman, to the gender of the customers. Yeah, at Agribank we and right now we have the same policy for both the woman and the man customer. However, we you know that at the bank right now we have focused more on the women leaders. Yeah, this is an evidence that Vietnam and now actually Agribank has pay more attention to the woman. Yeah, many of our leaders from the BOD or BOM comes from the a woman. Yeah, a woman. Yeah, and for the loans to the farmers, we do not have separated interest rate or any preferential credit package for the woman, for the woman farmer. Yeah, the same. We have the same policy for both.
So I think that clarifies, while Agribank is prioritized, or at least giving importance as well to women-owned enterprises, credit policies are largely similar for those borrowers. No? Just to give us time for a couple more questions. I believe there's a question here on the operational risk framework that Agribank is implementing. I think this goes back again to the earlier discussion on, given the vulnerabilities associated with this sector, what particular risks are being monitored on a regular basis by Agribank in order to ensure that you can sustain these programs to the rural communities in your country?
As I mentioned to you that earlier, that the loans to customer in rural and agricultural areas are most affected by the weather, the climate change, or the natural disaster. Especially in Vietnam, you know that the central of Vietnam, the flood and the drought happens very very usually in the central of Vietnam, and we find this as we have to that also we have to spend funds to cover this kind of risks for this risks, and also the loans are assessed and reviewed regularly by the regulation of the bank in order to find any risks that may arise, and then all the credit staff, they have to assess and review the loans very frequently to review.
Right. And given that vulnerability, Ms. Giang, of course, we can't avoid any bad loans from occurring. Sometimes, as much as we want to control them, it does happen. So one of the participants is asking, how do you recover, or at least what kind of challenges or strategies have you implemented to ensure that you can recover the bad debts occurring from these target market?
Yeah, you know that when the bad debt comes, we will work before that. We will work with the like the union of farmers or union of women, where the customer they live in that district, to find a way to recover the bad debt. And also we have to sell the collateral assets from them.
I think it's good way to really build a personal relationship with these borrowers. So in case these kinds of instances or negative situations, we are able to find a mechanism to really restructure or find a way to have that principal collected by Agribank. So just a final question, Ms. Giang, before we formally end. Any sort of advice to all of the bankers here in this call, if ever their institution really wants to grow their contributions to financial inclusion? What do you think are the best strategies that the institutions can take in order to achieve the level of success that Agribank has done over the past decade?
You know that we have shared with you for 11 things that Agribank has done in order to make the national financial inclusion strategy successfully. Among of these 11 jobs that Agribank has done for 3 years, despite the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. You know that choosing one of them, which is the most important thing, I think that's not enough to choose, because everything that we do here, that we do at the same time. We have to reduce. We have to implement on the credit policy from the government. Besides of that, we have been a commercial banks. We have to do digital transformation products and services, and we also have to closely work with other local authorities or social political organization, like the Farmers Union or Women's Union. And also we have to follow on the strategy to promote the non-cash payment strategy of the country as well. So based on I think that based on the nature of the member bank, maybe each of you will find something that is very useful, or that is can implement it at your bank right now. Maybe you can find one of these 11 is important, and you can choose to do it first. But actually, all of these things that we have to do very at the same time. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ms. Giang, for your response and for spending your hour with us this afternoon. Once again, let's give a virtual round of applause to Ms. Pham Thi Vuong Giang, the Deputy Director of Financial Institutions Department at Agribank. Thank you very much for your time and your wisdom that you've shared. So basically, ladies and gentlemen, that ends our webinar for this afternoon. I hope that everyone had a very productive session. Like you guys, I've learned a lot from Agribank's experience, particularly on how access is something we can all provide to the unbanked and underserved markets, how relationships with these borrowers can assist us in really delivering the national targets of our countries, and how we can contextualize our lending policies and our operations to the realities of the market. At this point in time, again, I just want to formally express our gratitude for Ms. Pham Thi Vuong Giang and for the rest of the Vietnam Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development for sharing your insights on Vietnam's road to financial inclusion, as well as your successes and achievements over the past couple of years. We also want to thank the Asian Bankers Association for organizing this webinar, and for everyone here who spent the last hour of your day with us. I sincerely hope that you enjoyed today's session. Once again, my name is Dan Lumayan, and I wish you all a very pleasant afternoon. Thank you, everyone.